Welcome back to the show, everybody. Three Beards Podcast is talking haunted houses tonight. Haunted house. It's going to be a really cool story. We've got Lynn Monet. She is the author of Omnipresent, and she's also got a follow-up one. Name of it's not in front of me, so I'm having trouble with remembering that one. So she'll help me out there. But this episode and all the ones are brought to you by ERT Radio, ERRT Radio. Go to Mixler.com. Set up an account there. Ron, he's working on a really nice lineup of shows. He's got some music lineups that he plays along with there. I want to say there's like 5 or 6 different shows now that he's gone there, including us. We're rebroadcast. This show will be rebroadcast next Wednesday at 11 p.m. And so just check that out. But Lynn Monet, she is the author, like I said, of the book Omnipresent. Like I said, this one she sent to me. She's got quite the background. She has a degree in biological science. She's been on a lot of amazing shows. Spaced Out Radio, Dave Scott, Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, Linda, Earth Files, Linda Moulton Howell. Hey, I'd love to get her on the show somehow. That'd be cool too. That's Leap Project with Rex Bear, Beyond Reality, Supernatural Realm. More goes on. Then the one book I was just thinking is Omnipresent, What Happened Next? And then there's also a book, I think it might be released. If not, it's Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End. She's a paranormal consultant and a lecturer specializing in hauntings and the afterlife. She's been a nurse, which, especially in the last few years, is definitely a valuable commodity. That's been well needed. So we're gushing over here. Let's just get her on here and we'll just talk about the haunting stuff going on. So Lynn Monet, and we're going to be talking Omnipresent, and that is, if I can find the link, which I always have trouble, is right now. Welcome to the Three Beards Podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is quite
justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, we've got Brian and Chris are here, gentlemen.
What's up?
Oh, and it was a that thing when they put on the shampoo bottles and stuff, and they say, don't leave in for too long, may have disastrous effects. It was true. It all disappeared.
Wow. I
went bald.
I got a guy who could give you a man wig.
No, it actually, especially in the Florida heat, it feels amazing. So that's one of those things. So yeah, that's the thing. I am the only hair on this head right now is right here. So it's
Homer Pyle.
So yeah, good thing I kept that shampoo away from the forehead, right? Yeah, that would not have been good. Anyway, so like I said, everything been going good in your guys' end.
Yeah, our week, my struggle from the week, but we're good.
Oh yeah, no, it's yeah, same thing. It's just we've all had a fun week, and it's only halfway through.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I'm thinking Mercury's back in town because this week has sucked.
Well, yeah, this was day 3 of 13 in a row for work. So this is
overtime.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we got a big event working downtown. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. So
I'm only gonna be there one day because I got youth sports. But
He's lucky.
And I might.
But our esteemed guest is in our virtual green room, and that is Lynn Monet. How are you?
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Good. Long time coming. I said we've been emailing back and forth, and so I was really looking forward to this. So it's
me too.
I've got the website too, and I'm going to bring up here. It's Lynn Monet. That's LYNNMONET.com. LynnMonet.com. And that's I'll put that up on the screen for those of you watching. For those of you listening, I hopefully have spelled that slow enough, or just gives you an excuse to replay. There we go.
I was starting to think the book was haunted. Every time I tried to pull it up, it would exit out, and I'm like, "Ah, you're serious."
You know, that book, I actually had to have all of the pages inside of it blessed. So there's a cross at the bottom of each page, because when I had people reading it prior to having it even edited, I was getting phone calls one by one. Lynn, my lights are turning on and off. Lynn, my kids' toys are turning on in the other room. Lynn, my kid just saw somebody. So I realized that wasn't the kind of energy that I wanted to have brought into people's homes. So I had every page in that book blessed. And as I was also mentioning to Craig before we started, I literally had to write that book a total of 3 times because it disappeared twice. And I had to rewrite it. So,
do you offer the copy without that for the people that do want that kind of party?
Well,
you get the 2 special. You get the special edition that makes your house come alive.
That's right.
It's like a revival in there.
With a big warning, not responsible for.
Maybe if you lay it in the middle of a Ouija board or something, then it might kind of negate that blessing. But I don't know.
And Chris, from Country Boy Cryptids, just wanted to, we'll give you a nice little shout out here, man. Happy birthday, sir.
Yes.
I said we're gonna be on his show next week. I said
it's very interesting. But when Lynn, you were saying about this book, I was working on a friend of mine's book. It's all about demons, and I don't play around with demons. Are way above my pay grade in this whole entire field. I will not mess with them. The minute it started, it just went south the whole time, and I gave up. I said I can't do it. I had too much things, and actually because of the book, I lost that friend for whatever reason, and I got it off my hard drive. I just got it out of everything. I want nothing to do with it. And I think there is a connection to that. So I've been where you were.
Yes. There were actually 2 demons and a young man in the house that we're going to be talking about tonight. There was a hell dog in that house, or hellhound, whichever you want to call it. So it was not a fun time. Yeah,
I mean, literally pieces out of Ghostbusters. Is what it sounded like. I mean, you basically, you've got the hellhounds, you've got just all these images. I mean, you've got one. I'm trying to get this. So as we're talking, I'm going to bring up the picture, that one that you sent me of the ghost, the ghostly apparition in front of the door.
That one's coming out in my 3rd book of the Omnipresent series. Right now, I have Omnipresent. Omnipresent is going to end up being a series of 5 books. Omnipresent, What Happens Next is out. The Omnipresent 111 Becadon Drive is in editing, which should be out by the end of May at the latest. That picture is from that incident. It's the first time I've ever seen a ghost naked, but that guy was going from townhouse to townhouse, pulling down women's underwear and crawling in bed with them during the night. And then all of a sudden here, I want to take his picture, and he wants to cover up his manhood. So you can actually see him standing there naked, but he has his hands covering his man parts. So it's like, really, you want to go and expose it to everybody when you're being sneaky, but when you get exposed, you want to cover up and you be bashful.
That's right. Yeah, he's not looking for exposure.
No.
Not that kind of exposure anyways.
No, it's funny too. They like to be recognized, but they definitely don't like being exposed. That's for sure.
That's crazy. Yeah, so as we're working on that, I'm going to get that. So we'll just kick off. So basically, take people, for those that aren't familiar with your story, just from the beginning, because this is a house up in North Carolina. You guys are looking at it. From what the parts I remember is that this house just kind of, it was almost like too good to be true. It was just like, this house is perfect. This house is just like, oh my God. Everybody has to think, oh my God, I must have this house. What does it take? So I'm going to let you take it from there.
Okay.
That was a setup.
That's okay. That it's perfect. And I've had gifts ever since I was a younger child. So coming forward, and some of that was dampened through my childhood. My mother did. I was born and raised Presbyterian. My mother did a jaunt with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and we won't go there. However, which kind of made me afraid of my gifts, and I would run out of the room just as fast as anybody else seeing some of these entities that I have. I have the ability to. I have what is called second sight, so I have the ability to see spirits. So when this house came about, it actually put me with people of like mind, and I was able to nurture my abilities and go forward. But just to back up a little bit, I was a single mom. I was living in a old single wide trailer, trying to rebuild my credit after a financially devastating divorce with 2 little kids. And I had been looking for a house for a year, and I had the same realtor taking me around. And it seemed like whenever I would find something, I'd want to step back and think about it a little bit. And then a couple of days later, I'd say, okay, let's make a bid. And then the house would be gone, because on my single mother income, I didn't have a lot of money to spend on a house. So, and usually those houses needed a lot of repair, or they were next to a stinky dump, or, they were not in a great area type thing. So it was kind of difficult to find. So when this particular house came on the market, my realtor calls me and she said, this house is almost too good to be true, and it is in your price range. And that should have resonated with me. Her colleague hadn't even put it on the MLS yet. She had just come back from taking pictures of the inside and outside of the house. And so I raced over to the realtor's office, and we went to the house. We drove over to the house, and while we're driving, I'm looking through the pictures that she had given to me to look at. And I'm like, can you call the other realtor, the listing agent, and see if this price is right? Because this house could easily have sold for $100,000 more than what they were asking. I mean, it was a 2,400 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a garage that could fit 3 cars if you pulled one forward, with a workshop in it. It had a family room, a formal dining room, breakfast. It was a nice house. It was a really, really nice split level house. So then I'm thinking, okay, the price, she confirmed that the price was right. And I'm thinking, well, there's got to be something wrong with the neighborhood. Is there a nuclear plant or a paper plant or something close by that would make it undesirable? And it turned out not to be any of those things. It was in a great neighborhood. It was in low taxes, great schools. It was on a dead-end street. I call it trick-or-treat houses, when they're close enough together that the kids can go house to house and get lots of candy. So it was on a Florida flat lot too. It was, oh yes, this picture. Do you have the one that's outlined so that people know where to look?
I'm going to show that one right here next.
And then go back. So anyway, as she said it was too good to be true. When we got to the house, it had a double entry door going into the foyer, which then you had the ascending and descending stairs off of that. And there was always something about that lock that was difficult. And it turned out that there was the hell dog that kind of controlled the stairwell and the hallway, and it manipulated the locks on the door. And so when we first pulled up there, she got the keys out of the box and went to put them into the door, and it wouldn't go in. And so she's thinking that maybe, that the wrong keys were put into the box. So, but it seemed like every single time she'd say, okay, well, I'm just going to try this one more time. Then it would magically go in, and then it wouldn't turn. And then she almost broke the key off in there. And she's like, well, I'm going to try one more time. Then it would magically turn. And then she finally got the door open, but she was trying to get the key back out of the deadbolt. So I entered the house into the foyer, and I'm looking around. The people had completely moved out. I was told that the people that they were anxious to sell because they had relocated to another area for work, and they were having to pay 2 mortgages. So they were, very, very anxious to sell.
Before we get too far, hold on. Let me ask you a question. In the car, when you were riding down, you said, let me pray, God, if this house is right for me, let me get it. So finish. I'm gonna add something later. Go ahead.
Okay, I did that quite a bit actually throughout the whole thing with the house before getting it. I am a woman that believes in God, and I definitely, I said a prayer. If this is meant to be mine, then please, let it be. And for some reason it's not, then I trust that, that there's something better for me. So anyway, as she was trying to get the key back out of the deadbolt lock, I ventured into the house, and I decided to go look up the stairs. And as I'm going up the stairs in my peripheral vision, I see this young man hanging from the wrought iron railing in the stairwell. And of course, I've been, with traditional religion and things like that, I've been trained to not believe that those things are true at this point, even though I could see it as clear as I can see you. And just so that you know, the way that I see spirits is I can see out of my peripheral vision, I can see them as clear as I can see you. I can tell you what they have on, what color hair they have, how their hair's styled, what kind of shoes, whether they have socks on or not, if their ankles are showing. They're in front of me, they look kind of like the reflection that you see of yourself in a plate glass window when you're walking up like to the mall or something, and you can see your reflection. They kind of look like that to me. And when they're closer to me, I see a waffling in the air, kind of like heat off of a hot rotor, like gas vapors. That kind of waffling to the air is how they look to me. So wow. Anyway, so I looked directly at the area, and of course, then there was nothing there. So I thought to myself, man, why on earth would I think of something so awful? And I will add that it was confirmed to me by the next door neighbor who had been on the street even before it had been paved. It was the very first house. This house was built in the 1970s, so it's not about the age of the house. It's about the age of the ground that the house is built on. So a brand new house can be haunted if it's built in the wrong place. So, but the gentleman next door confirmed that the people that initially built the house in 1976, that the young man did hang himself in the stairwell. His parents were going through a divorce. He was having some problems with drugs, and he hung himself in the stairwell, and his mom came home and found him. So that was true. So, but I found that out, of course, after the fact, after I'd signed on the dotted line. So I continue upstairs, and I'm looking into the living room, and of course I'm just in awe of this house, because here we've been living in a single wide mobile home that could have fit inside of this house 4 times over if you had stacked it on top of itself. And, as a single mother, I couldn't imagine. I was so thrilled with the thought that I might be able to provide something this grand for my family, my children. So I'm imagining where my Christmas tree is going to go and all of those sorts of things. And then all of a sudden I feel this anger, like a bull running at me, just coming at me and like stopping within an inch of my face. And then I feel this like spider web thing. And since I've written the book, I've learned that is a portal, because that's how I feel them sometimes. And I didn't put the two together until I was talking to somebody not too long ago. And they said, did it feel like a portal? And I'm like, you know what? It did. So learning that that's what it was. So something was kind of coming through that, to the point that I had to step back on the stairs and grab the railing so that I wouldn't fall backwards. So I felt a little uncomfortable with that. I went back down to the foyer. The real estate lady is still trying really hard to get that key out. And she said, I've almost broke this key off in the lock. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get it out. So she tried one more time, and it just magically slips out like she put butter on it. And she's like, man, this lock is weird. We're going to have to get some WD-40. So we did go inside. I knew that from previous experience that I needed to make an offer on the house that day. We hadn't come across anything this nice the whole year she'd been driving me around. So I asked if we could come back later on that afternoon. I could bring my kids. And she said yes. So I drive over. I've got my 2 kids, who are Austin and Brittany. Those are their real names that are in the book, that are now grown. And I've had a third one since. But anyway, we went in, and of course, they're going down the hallway so tickled. They're picking out their bedrooms, and there was one smaller bedroom upstairs that, of course, everybody wants the big bedrooms and not the smaller one. But they came to me and asked if they could go look downstairs, and I said, well, yeah, sure, go ahead. So they went downstairs. They weren't down there 5 minutes, and my daughter comes back up, and she says to me, I don't want to move here. And I'm like, well, how could you not want to move here? You know, I'm thinking, you know, we've been living in this small mobile home all this time with no yard. And I mean, this is like a castle compared to what we were living in. And she said, there's something about this house that I do not like, and I do not want to live here. And of course, I'm embarrassed because I'm standing with the realtor who's been dragging me around for a year. And here my teenager is being a teenager. And so I just assumed that it was because she realized that she'd be changing schools and all of this sort of thing. So I went ahead and I made the bid. And I said a prayer. I said, you know, if it's meant to be mine, let it be mine. And lo and behold, I got the call the next day that they accepted my offer. There was also someone else that had made an offer that day as well. So it was between the two of us, or maybe even more than that, but I ended up getting it. So of course, I'm thrilled with this. So we moved forward to the closing part of the thing, and the people that were selling it to me were about 2 hours late to the closing, and I found out why later, which is in the second book. But so I'm signing my papers ahead of time, and then they arrive, and I'm trying to talk to the wife, and she will not make eye contact with me. She stares at her feet the whole time. Yeah.
Oh, they know.
Oh, they know. They're like, oh, she's gonna buy it. Okay.
Yes. Well, and just to give you a little blurb out of the second book, I actually did get a hold of them after I sold it and found out why they were late. Apparently, the husband and wife were arguing when she found out that I had children, and she didn't want to sell me the house. Yep. So that's why they got there late. But she was looking down at her feet the whole time. And the funny thing was, too, is I found out that they had not relocated for jobs. They just simply moved into their in-laws' house, you know? Yeah. So anyway, you know, so
don't look at me. Don't look at me.
Yeah. None of it was true. And I remember I'm like doing this, trying to get into review. And I'm like, because it had like off-white carpeting in there. I'm like, oh no, that's not going to go well with kids. And it was in good condition, but I'm like, I'm putting in wooden flooring, you know, I had purchased the house in March. The kids had 8 more weeks of school. So I was going to do renovations from March until June when they got out. We were going to move in, let them start their school year fresh with, you know, a new school fresh at the beginning of the year, and finish out the remaining year with the kids that they were already in with. And I was just going to commute. So we had that time frame, and the house was so haunted that I never actually moved into it. That's how bad it was. Wow. Yeah. So we'll just, you know, it was that bad. So anyway, the very first day that we got the keys after the closing, I took dinner makings over and with the kids, and I was going to do some work as much as I could on the house myself so that I was on a budget as a single mom. I wanted a higher grade of wooden flooring. So I was like pulling up carpeting and the staples and stuff myself. But we had gone there, and I'm standing in the kitchen. I'm browning some hamburger for tacos. And my daughter comes into the kitchen, into the doorway, and she says, "What did you want?" So I didn't call you. And she said, "Yes, you did." And I said, "No, I didn't." And we went back and forth for a little bit. And then my son comes in. He's peering in underneath her arm, and he says, "Mommy, I heard you call her too." And so the thing about it is these things, they do have an intelligence about them. They learned very, very quickly what each of the children's name were, that I was the mommy lady, and they could mimic my voice enough that my own children thought that it was me. So they do have an intelligence about them. So we ended up, you know, I rationalized it. I'm like, oh, you know, Brittany's a popular name. It was dinner time. Maybe there's a neighbor with a daughter named Brittany, and they were calling her home for dinner. You know, I mean, I'm trying to rationalize all of this stuff. So we left, and I dropped them off at school the next morning, and I came back. And when I came into the kitchen to put my purse down, I noticed that the inside of the oven light was on, and the light over the stove light was on. And then I start walking through the house, and every single light is turned on in that house. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, if it had been 1 or 2 lights, I would have thought maybe one of my kids ran back and left something on. But I was the last one that left the house, so that wasn't rationalized. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't rationalize that either. So I thought maybe somebody had been entrusted with a key, you know, that the house sold so fast. I mean, it didn't even make the MLS, you know, until after I had looked at it that one day. So I figured maybe one of the neighbors or something had a key. So I went across the street and I introduced myself and I asked, has anybody been entrusted with a key? All of my lights are on in this house, and I didn't, turn them on. Or did you see a realtor maybe pull up and show the house after I left? Type thing after I left last night, or was anybody there? And they verified that there wasn't any. They even said that they had taken their walk that night, and it had just gone into daylight savings time. And they said that they noticed that the solar lights were on outside, but there were no lights on in the house. So I said, okay. I said, well, I'm the new owner. It's nice to meet you. So I went back across the street, turned off the lights, finished working, pulling up carpet, and left to pick up my kids. So things continued to happen. I did go back the next day, and again, the locks, always the locks. This time the lights weren't on. All of the peripheral doors and locks were unlocked. And again, I go back across the street to the neighbors and I said, did you see anybody here? Because all of the locks, including the lock, there was the reason why I questioned it is because there was a workshop in the garage that had a metal door and it had a chain link connected to it. I had boxes up against that door. I'm 5'9". They were chin level and arm length away. The only way that chain could have been dangling like that off to the side is if somebody had moved the boxes out of the way from the inside, undid the chain, and then pushed all of the boxes back. That's the only way that it could have been, like that. So, and they told me no, but the lady spoke up and she said, listen, I'm not trying to be a nosy neighbor, but when you were leaving yesterday, and I had forgotten about this part when she reminded me, she said, I was at my kitchen sink doing dishes, and not only did you lock the door, you doubled back and even took the knob and shook the door to make sure that it was secure. So, things kind of started to happen that way. So things really started to amp up when we started sleeping there. I didn't bring the kids' furniture or anything over yet. I got blow-up mattresses for the floor. The very, very first night that we spent a night over there, my daughter, Brittany, had her best friend come and spend the night too. And, at about 2:00 in the morning, the girl had gone into the kitchen to get Oreos and was so spooked by something that she actually wanted to go home. And I mean, wow. how many times, how many 14-year-olds do you know that want to go home in the middle of a sleepover? They usually stay up all night, but they don't want to go home. But she was so scared that she would not even go into the bathroom without having my daughter stand by that. And I ended up having to call and wake up her parents. She was that adamant about it to call her parents.
Is this before the episode with your mom coming there and just
yes.
couldn't even be in there?
Yes. This was while I was still in denial. My kids were seeing things, but they weren't telling me, and I was in denial. So we ended up, having her call her parents, and they calmed her down, and they didn't want to have to get up and drive a half an hour, and I surely didn't. So she just stayed awake the rest of the night, and I took her where she needed to go the next day. So anyway, then, my kids were kind of, wanting to go back again. And this time, the second time that I went back to do a sleepover, I took my dog. I had a little black schnauzer named Sally, and that dog would not go in that house. She balked so hard at that front door that her collar came over her head. And I thought, maybe she needs to go to the bathroom or something. So I put her on a lead out in the front yard, and she seemed to be happy there. And eventually, when I had to bring her in, I had to lift her up and carry her in. And then she started darting around the house looking for an exit. And of course, something happened that day with the kids, of which I didn't find out until weeks later. My dog all of a sudden shows up in the kitchen doorway trembling, and I'm thinking that she's cold. So I got a couple of towels because that's all I had to cover her up with, and she gladly stayed there and wouldn't take her eyes off of me. But apparently what had happened was the dog went downstairs with the kids. The kids were in the family room. There was this large family room downstairs, and they were trying to play their video game with the little portable TV that we had brought. And one of the demons presented in the room. And the dog was so frightened by it that she literally started pawing at the drywall next to the door, almost making a hole in it, trying to get out of there. So when they opened the door, she darted out and was sitting in the doorway. And of course, my kids then came upstairs, and my daughter had seen the hellhound at that first time it came up behind her. And, she, I don't know, as brave as she was to do what she did to handle that. But so they still weren't telling me at that time. That particular day, and also just to let you know, I had 4 different workers. I couldn't get workers to stay there. The 4th guy was stoned all of the time, so he carried his own monkey on his back, and he was friends with him, so they didn't bother him, and he ended up finishing the work. But the first 3 did not stay past 2:00 in the afternoon, and I will tell you why in a little bit. So moving forward back to that night, I had started so many things in so many of the rooms that I just wanted one room done so that I could go in the room and shut the door and pretend that I was finished. So I took on the master bedroom bathroom. My kids had drugged the blow-up mattresses in onto the master bedroom floor. They were watching a movie, and I decided to go in and paint. So I painted the ceiling and the walls. I knocked it out in about 3 hours. I was finished. And when I came out, my kids were sound asleep. So I go into the kitchen and to rinse out my paint brushes. And when I finished, I'm coming out of the kitchen, and where the kitchen is, immediately when you exit the kitchen is that wrought iron railing over the descending stairs. And then the ascending stairs were right in front of me, and then a hallway, and the living room was like over here. So the wrought iron railing is the railing that the young man had hung himself on. So I come out right there where that wrought iron railing is, and I see this swiftly moving thing come across the double entry doors and shoot up in front of me and down the hallway towards the master bedroom. And I'm like, what on earth is that? It was not something from this earth. It literally stood up on its haunches. I'm 5'9". It came up to about 5'7". It was hunched over just a little bit. Its feet were fluttering so fast underneath its body that there was just a fluttering appearance. It had a large bushy tail like a squirrel. It was wolf looking. It had a narrowing to its nose, and it had large nares like a horse nose. The holes to the nares almost took up the whole end of the face. It had long ears on it like a rabbit. However, they were on each side like the FTD man, and they were turned backwards so that they were grazing over its shoulders as it kind of came up, and had very disgusting nails and stuff. And I'm standing there thinking to myself, this is not real. But whatever that is, it is not from this earth. So I'm trying to rationalize. I'm like, okay, I've been breathing paint fumes. It's been a while since I've eaten. Maybe my blood sugar's low. Maybe a bicycle or motorcycle drove through a street light, because I didn't have dressings on all of the windows yet, under a street light, making that reflection. But there was no way that it could have come up and done that. And it darted down the hallway right in front of me. And so I'm frozen. I'm like, I'm trying to rationalize. And all of a sudden I hear my dog down the hallway growling ferociously. And I immediately snap out of my funk, and I'm heading down that way because I don't want her to wake up my kids. So I go down, and she is standing about a foot to a foot and a half back from that master bedroom doorway, and her hair is up on her back, and she is growling so ferociously. I had never ever seen her like that before, where she was just so ferocious. So I went into the room, and I kind of scratched her head a little bit. She put her ears back for a minute and continued just to stand at that door, fixated on it. So to get her to quiet down, I thought, well, maybe, she needs to go out. The windows are open in a trailer park. That's an invitation, not a luxury. She's not used to having the windows open up on a second floor. Maybe she heard, a raccoon or something outside. So I took her outside. Again, I had to carry her back in the house. She runs in, and she nestles in between the kids. So I take my shower, I lay down with the kids, I go to sleep. The next morning we wake up, and I said to my daughter, I said, how'd you sleep last night? And she said, I didn't. She said, I felt like something was standing in the doorway all night long watching us. My son, who had taken a bath the night before. He had on his little shorts and t-shirt of Bob the Builder or whatever it was, Batman or something that he was into at that time at age 7. And when he woke up that morning, he had bite marks on his legs. He had 3 sets of bite marks on his legs that looked like dog bite marks. My dog was not prone to biting. And if she had bitten him, it would have been a larger bite. It wasn't small like a rat either. It was bigger than that. And you could literally count the teeth. They were purple. You could count the teeth from the bite marks, both the upper and the lower on his legs. And I remember him waking up and I said, Austin, you've got bite marks on your legs. What happened? And he's just kind of looking down, touching them. And he's like, I don't know. Whatever it was happened during the nighttime while he was sleeping. And I would have you couldn't miss them. I mean, I would have noticed them the night before when he came, after he came out of the bathroom taking his bath. You couldn't miss them. So it was something that did happen, during the nighttime.
Yeah, I was like, you should have just done like the meme, when they say, I found a spider and now the house is burning down.
Yeah,
yeah.
Literally. Well, the thing is I would have loved to have burnt that house to the ground. However, being a single mother, I couldn't afford to pay for 2 places to live. I couldn't afford to host a house for those creepy things. And I couldn't, there was just no way, because I would have preferred to have burned it to the ground and not have anybody end up going back there. I did mention about the workers. The workers, I had, as I said, 4 different workers come through there. The first one told me up front that, he was between building houses, and that if he would come and work on the rainy days, or if a big job came, he would then leave and go do that. So that happened and he was gone. The second one came and left his DeWalt tools behind. He never even came back to get paid. I kid you not. I contacted him when I realized only part of the wooden floor had started to be put down. And, he mentioned that somebody was in the hospital. And I'm like, well, okay, well, when can you come back? And he told me to leave his DeWalt tools in a box outside under this area, that he would come back and get them. And they sat there for 2 weeks and he never came back. And I tried calling him and his phone was disconnected. So I got DeWalt tools, and I never had to pay him. But the third guy was a friend of mine's cousin. I was a lady that I worked with at the facility that I'd been working with for a long time. And I got to find out what happened with him in the house. So I'll share that with you if you'd like me to.
Oh, yeah.
So was the second guy the coach? You said your son's coach or something. So
yes.
The second guy was the coach, correct?
Yes, and he even disappeared from coaching. I mean, he disappeared.
Oh, wow.
When I came, I figured that I would find him at my son's game and say, hey, listen, I actually, put his tools in my trunk and brought them. It's like, can you please come back and finish? Because I had ordered furniture, normal size furniture, because the rooms that my kids were living at the time were like 9 foot by 9 foot, and they had closets the size of a single wide refrigerator. So now they could have a nice bedroom suite and have, because they had normal sized bedrooms, and he was not there. They had to end up as a matter of fact, I had to end up coaching his Little League team because the guy left. So myself and 2 other mothers, we teamed up and we ended up finishing out coaching the Little League team because of it.
You scared him off the planet. Like, he just disappeared, phone disconnected and everything. He just left.
Gone. Yes. Yeah. And his kids weren't in the class anymore either. He had
he definitely scared him out of the area.
Yeah.
That was, one of the things before we get too far in there, I wanted to kind of touch back on, you talked about the one worker who was impaired, just like, so is there any connection to that? Cause that's one of the first times I've heard of that, about if anybody's like heavy into pot use, drug use, or something while they're working and these things, do they seem to have less of interactions with entities of these types, like ghost interactions? Because I've never heard that. And this is one of those things I was curious to you. I mean, does that seem to be something that maybe we could just start looking at data points. I mean, have you ever heard of that before? Where if somebody came in, they're on drugs, the people next to them are freaking out, and they're over here like, "What are you talking about, man? There's nothing going on."
Well, the thing is I have found in my profession and with my ability to have second sight, I've also had people see things at the same time as me. People that carry addictions do carry attachments. I call them archons. They fit like little backpacks. They look like spiders, crabs, or reptilian. Reptilian ones usually either have a tail that attaches at the hip, or they'll have a human buttocks and no tail. Depending, and I can go into that if you want me to, but yes, he had an archon on his back. Since he had an archon on his back, it was like the parking space was already filled. So, they didn't bother him. They like to attach to people to feed off of the negativity that the addiction creates and the rippling effect of chaos and sorrow and, the arguing amongst the family and the things that drug addiction or alcoholism often creates.
There's something about that, Lynn, which is very important because it's through my own research. When you get specifically to people that are getting high through marijuana, it's a totally different type of, it's not really addiction as much as people would think. People like to do it and use it. Addictive personalities mean there's a weakness in your defense. But one of the funny or interesting things about this and why this guy may have been able to deal with it better is when you get into the marijuana end of things or psychotropics, which most people don't get addicted to, you are, unbeknownst to yourself, you're filtering out all the stuff that messes with your mind and we deal with every day, and you actually vibrate in a higher frequency. So you elevate yourself. That's why that's part of the high. You're vibrating on the higher frequency, and all these other things don't bother you. So that may have been his protective shield in this case. When you have a major drug abuse, heroin or whatever, that is pure evil. I mean, there's nothing but that drug. And when you're in that kind of mode and you're just, pot smokers are just pot smokers. They could live with it. They could live without it. It's.
Well, I think maybe that's what I was kind of getting at. Maybe that was like the type of thing. It's like they put themselves in a state where it really isn't that big of a deal. Yeah, like if you're already tripping out on stuff like that, what's seeing some blurry object over in the corner? You're going to be like, that's not a big deal.
Exactly. And and the thing is they do feed off of the negative emotions like fear or anger or sorrow and depression and things like that, and it enables them to do more physical acts. So I'm not sure if he was also snorting cocaine or whatever his thing is. He did have an archon on his back, and again, pot is pot and cigarettes are cigarettes, but they are gateways for other things.
Totally agree.
So
I'm not denying that.
Right. And even the Indians used to use like pot and things like that. So it wasn't, he was stoned all of the time. I just didn't want him to do it around my kids. But whatever he had going on with him created like a force field for him, I guess, that they weren't interested in bothering him. But like you said, he might see something and, be oblivious to it because, you just never know. But the bottom line being that he was I at least was able to have him finish the work, and he did a good job. So as long as he didn't do it around my kids, I was okay with that. And actually, after that second night in the house, I didn't take my children back for a very, very long time. But my friend, the third guy that came to the house was, like I said, a coworker's cousin. So I actually got to find out what happened to him in the house while he was in there. He and I were in there together. I had already seen the hellhound at this point. I had I don't remember if I had the experience with the second demon as well, but this particular, yes, I had had it. I had the second thing, but I wanted to go forward with this. He and I were both in the house at the same time. I was in the hallway painting the ceiling. All the carpet had been pulled out. I knew he was going to be working out of my son's bedroom into the hallway. So I wanted to have the painting done in the hallway so that I wouldn't be dripping paint onto the new wooden flooring. And I'm standing in the hallway and I turn and I see this out of my peripheral vision, this young man coming up the ascending stairs to the main floor. And he was so real. He had on blue jeans. He had on a white Oxford shirt, long sleeve, penny loafers, no socks, kind of 80s style, hair parted down the middle, feathered back. Looked like he had an acne problem or like darkness to his cheeks. And he was so real to me that I turned to him and I said, "Did you knock?" And Bobby in the other room made mention. He says, no, he says, I might have just dropped something. He thought I was talking to him because we were the only two there. So when I looked back at the stairs, there was nothing there, but there was kind of that waffling. And I thought to myself, okay, it's a ghost. We have a ghost in the house. I finally had to admit to myself that that's what it was. And so that day I ended up leaving to go pick up my kids. Around 1:30 I left, and 2:00 I'm sitting in the car line waiting to pick up my kids, and it's Bobby, and he says, I have to leave right now. There's something weird about this house that I've never experienced before. And the line dropped. It took me about a half an hour to get a hold of him finally. And when I did end up getting a hold of him, he didn't want to talk about it. He's like, oh, it was nothing, but I'd rather be there when you're there. And again, yeah. And then again, he never came back to finish the job either. And I was like desperate because that following week, I had plans for furniture to start being moved in. I mean, we were practically into May at this point. And so, the days were clicking along, and I needed to, plus I had sold the place that I was living. So I had 30 days to get out. So, and then I ended up reneging on that and moving back in there, but, cause I wasn't able to move in. So, I asked my friend at work, I said, listen, could you please ask Bobby what happened? I said that he never came back. I said, I think it has something to do with paranormal. And she said, okay, she would ask him. So 4th of July came, and he was at her house. He'd been drinking a couple of beers. He was feeling a little talkative. And she asked him, she said, what happened at Lynn's house? And he said, Lynn is such a nice lady. I feel so bad that I never went back and finished the job. But that is words that I can't say on the radio that starts with an F. And he said that it was that word up. He said that house is, that. And he said, I'm sorry that I couldn't go back there. And she asked him what had happened. And he said that he was sitting on one of those rolling garden seats because of his knees being messed up from football. And he had a mallet and a trowel, and he had a block of wood to, tap in the tongue and groove flooring that I was having put in. So he said that he put a piece in, and that he went to reach for the mallet and the block of wood, and they weren't there. So he thought that he rolled over them. So he scoots over a little bit, thinking that he had, rolled over them, and they weren't there. And he looks off to the side, and about 7 feet away was the opening to the bedroom door. The door was open, and they were lined up 1, 2, 3, paralleling each other right by the door. And of course, he's very disturbed by it, but he's thinking that I came back and that I snuck in the room and managed to move the tools just to play a joke on him. So he gets up, he picks up the tools, he's out calling for me, looking for me out in the hallway. And of course I'm not there, and this really spooks him. So he's like, well, there's nothing here but me, maybe I did it and I don't remember, but I don't know what happened. So he turns on the radio. He had a little battery operated radio, and he had turned on the light and sits back down, and he starts to go to put another piece of the flooring in, and the light shuts itself off, and then the radio shuts itself off. And then he hears the tools dragging behind him, and they line up right back in front of that door, exactly the same way that it was when he picked them up before. And he said he couldn't get out of there fast enough. So the thing is that when he left, there were very, very odd shaped windows in the house. Instead of going up and down, they were the kind that you would crank and they would open like this, a type thing. So I had an air conditioner in the one window in my son's room, but the air conditioner, because it didn't fit well in the window, left it open to, the exterior by about this much. It was a Friday, and I was working a bailiff shift on the weekends, and I had to work all weekend. So when I finally got a hold of him and asked him, I said, hey, did you secure the house? Did you close the windows? Did you pull the air conditioner in, kind of thing? And he's like, no, I ended up having to go back to the house. So I didn't want to go back by myself. So I asked my neighbor, Ellen, to go with me, and she agreed to go. And while we're driving there in the car, I'm telling her about the young man that I had seen just that day, and that I suspected that there was a ghost in the house. And I kind of told her about the lights and the locks and the water and all of the stuff that had been happening. And I told her, I said, listen, I really appreciate you going with me, but if for some reason when we get there, if you don't want to go inside, I'm okay with that. I'll go across the street and get the lady's husband and see if he can come in, because that air conditioner was on a second floor. So, it was heavy and I needed help pulling it in. She said, oh, no. She says, I'll go in with you. She says, I said, do you believe in ghosts? Oh, hell yeah, I believe in ghosts. And I'm like, okay. So we get there, and this time I'm the one having the trouble with the lock. I can't get the key in. Then it's the same scenario as with the realtor, oh, one more time. And finally I get it open, and
And the murderer is.
Oh, that was great. That was crazy.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, that was almost just like the perfect timing too.
Yeah.
So I finally get the key in and
he's gone.
Sorry.
Gone.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, so
Master storytelling.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the key back out of the lock, and so, Ellen is standing there, and she says, you're not going to leave me here and let the boogeyman get me. Now, you don't want to mock them, because they will target you. And when she said that, she was like laughing about it. Oh, you're not going to leave me here and let the boogeyman get me. And they targeted her.
Wow.
So we go into the house. We go into my son's bedroom. We pull in the air conditioner, and then we go into the kitchen. And I was proud. I hadn't had a chance to show off the house at all to anybody really yet that I knew. So we went into the kitchen, and my daughter had wanted this wild horse theme in her bedroom, and I had found these hand-carved wooden Morgan horse heads that I was going to drape a valance over. And so Ellen was holding one in each hand, and she's looking at them, and I can hear this sound that I had heard before when a demon was in the room, and it sounded like a didgeridoo, this vibrating kind of energetic sound. And I kept my mouth shut because I thought that I was the only person hearing it. And all of a sudden, Ellen says, "What's that sound?" I said, "Can you hear that?" And she says, "Yeah." And as I turn to look, there's this misting floor to ceiling, side to side, and it's coming in on us like a wall. She did not see that part. I did. So all of a sudden she starts screaming, and she throws the horse heads down. She starts grabbing her t-shirt, trying to look around the back of it. She says, "What is it? What is it? A spider bite? It's burning. It's burning so bad." And I'm like, what happened? So I went and I lifted up the back of her t-shirt, and diagonal between her shoulder blades was a 4-inch claw mark. This claw mark was so fresh that it was actually welting and just starting to bead blood. And as a nurse for 37 years, any nurse will tell you that is an initial response with a scratch. You can even pick a scab off, but that welting thing does not happen again. That is definitely an initial, like I said, an initial response to the wound. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, what happened? There's no furniture. Did you scratch yourself on the corner of the car door? What happened? And then she starts screaming again. And she said, "It got me again. It got me again." And sure enough, she had a claw mark below her belly button, and between her belly button and her pubic line off to the side. She had another 2.5-inch claw mark that was doing the same thing, that was beating blood. I stood in that room and I started calling out for every name that you can call. I was calling on God, Jesus, Jehovah, Buddha, Allah, you name it, Mother Mary, Archangel Michael. I was calling in the troops, anybody that I could think of. And that misting started to move back, but it didn't go completely away. It kind of lingered in the doorway opening. And I said to Ellen, I said, "Go to the car." I said, "I'll lock the door." And we left. And at that point, I was not messing with that deadbolt and getting my key stuck in there. So I only locked the knob lock. I figured, at this point, if anybody wants to come in here, this house can handle itself. Have at it. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, this was the first time that I went home and finally started, looking through the computer for assistance. And the thing was, I had called my sister, and I was telling her about what had happened. And lo and behold, I didn't know that my daughter, Brittany, was still awake, and she had overheard my conversation with my sister. And so when I got off the phone with my sister, I overhear my daughter's saying, she's like, Mommy, I know what the thing is that Claude, that scratched Ellen. And I'm like, what? And, I'm kind of playing like, when you tell them about the birds and the bees, you kind of stop, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You don't go overkill. You kind of just tell them to the point that you need to. And so, especially when they're real little, but, so I said to her, I said, oh, really? I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, she then told me about the hellhound and what it looked like, which was what I had also seen. She told me about the second demon in the house. And literally we even sat down at one point with paper, and she drew it and I drew it, and neither one discussed what it looked like. And the comparison was unbelievably similar.
You saw those drawings?
Pardon me?
You saw those drawings?
I don't.
Oh.
But she and I could definitely recreate them because we remember it like it was yesterday. Those drawings disappeared. I had those drawings plus the drawing of the hell dog in there that she had actually drawn a really good one of. But like with the pages disappearing and having them be blank in the file the second time that I wrote the book, I'm not surprised. A lot of things disappeared with this book. They like to be recognized, but they don't like to be exposed. And especially when it's something, really exposing them in this way. But the thing is that, when she made mention of that, and then she started talking about the young man and in the blue jeans, and he looked like he had sunken in cheeks. Well, I saw him with a ruddy complexion, which was darkened. She thought the darkened looked like sunken in cheeks. So we both saw the same thing. And so I couldn't be in denial anymore. And I did not take my kids back to that house at that point. I did take them back one more time after I had multiple religions in there. When it's something like that, you have to be careful who you talk to because they're going to think that you're crazy. So I started going through the yellow pages, and I went church by church by church and calling them. And I had so many of them referring me to the Catholics. And I'm like, well, because that's what the Catholics do. Everybody knows that. But it's like, well, why can't your church help me? I had many of them that had the nerve to tell me that if I had been attending their church, this wouldn't be happening to me. And then
You beat me to it. I was going to say, I bet you, because you weren't putting enough money in their plate.
That's right.
Yes.
And I actually had one that, I told them that I was a single mother that actually turned it around and accused me of being promiscuous, and that's the reason why I'm having that in my life. And I'm like, look, I can't even afford a babysitter. I haven't even been out on a date in 4 years. That's absurd, totally absurd. But they were trying to rationalize all of these reasons why this was happening to me. None of them called me crazy. I've never ever had anyone send me negative mail about what I'm talking about. I've had more people come to me with stories of their own with this. That way, obviously, I'm a sane person. Well, some of my friends may beg to differ, but I'm fun. But it just, and I'll talk about it to anybody. At this point, this is really something that needs to get out, and people need to be aware of this parallel activity of spirit activity that's paralleling right along with us, and sometimes interfering with our right to live and live our life the way that we want to here. But so I ended up reaching out to, I had been working at the facility for 7 years at that point, of 10 years total that I worked there. And it was Episcopalian based. So I met with the priest who had known me for 7 years. We had lunch, we'd all meet up at the table at lunch. So there would be a group of nurses and him sitting there. And I started to tell him the story, and he didn't question me. He believed me. And he told me, he says, I used to do exorcisms. He says, I don't do them anymore. He says, but again, you need to call, the Catholics. So I called the Catholic diocese in North Carolina and spoke to an archbishop. I got that high. And they basically told me, that they basically do exorcisms on people, but they don't do it on the houses, or however it was, or maybe it was the other way around, but they couldn't help me. So I ended up then going through, because I didn't know, I didn't have like people like you guys that could come in and get them out, or, Ghostbusters. There really are Ghostbusters. Most of the places that I found just wanted to come in and take pictures of the ghosts and sell them online. So, and I wanted somebody to come in and get them out, because here I had sold my place. I was on limited time needing to get out of the place that I was living in. And the thing was, is they also accused me that, well, maybe it's you. It's like, look, when I leave that place and go to my mobile home and sleep, there are no problems there. There's nothing going on there. There are no problems there. It's not me. It's not my children. It's that house. So, and I had to make that clear a lot of times as well. So I did end up having a group from Georgia Paranormal, come up with Father Andrew Calder, who has since passed away. May he rest in peace. And also I had a Presbyterian minister in there as well, that were at the same time working together to clear the house. And I mean, this took 2 days. They came in with the infrared cameras and all of that went through the house with the lights off, got pictures of the ghosts. I actually saw orbs flying that stopped in front of me with the same buzzing sound like the didgeridoo, and then flew off together. So it was verified that it was haunted, that it was demonic. And so, they did the clearing of the corners of the yard and everything. However, they then ended up telling me that I could take my children back to the house. So I take my kids back to the house thinking that it's okay. This time my son brings a friend. I need to mow the grass. So I'm in the garage putting gasoline into the mower to go mow the grass. And my son's friend, Zach, comes in. They were playing out front in the yard in a tree. And he comes down the stairs, and he's like wincing and holding the side of his neck. And he said to me, his facial expression, you could tell whatever it was really hurt. And I asked him, I said, Zach, what happened? Did you, were you guys sword fighting? Did you get whacked in the neck with something or fall out of the tree? And he's like, I don't know. But when I got to the bottom of the stairs, it just hit me and it burns. And then he started to retch, which is a dead giveaway. I had my mother, who was retching prior to that in the house multiple times, where she had to step outside. And I myself was attacked during the clearing with the Presbyterian minister, Father Andrew Calder, and the Presbyterian minister and the Episcopalian priest, which was Andrew Calder. And I was attacked. And I mean, I felt the lash on my forearm that I literally put my hand on there. And I was so sure that if I moved my hand, that blood was going to come gushing out. It burned. It was that real. It was that real that that's what it felt like. I thought for sure I had been cut to the bone with a hot skewer, and it was burning. And when Andrew Calder came over and put the cross over the top of my hand and told it to leave this child of God alone, it stopped that second. Immediately, all of that pain stopped that second, but I'm still kind of like peeking, making sure that it's not going to be bloody and bleeding. So I understood what he was talking about when he was saying about that it was hot. And then when he started to retch, I'm like, oh no, they're still here. They're attacking the kids. So I helped Zachary get to the car, and I hollered out to my kids. I said, it's time to go. I yelled out, I said, do not come in that front door and come down these stairs into this garage. Well, my son went to the car. He was out front playing in the tree, so he heard me. My daughter did not hear me. She comes down the stairs to the bottom stair, and she hits that bottom stair, and she starts, ow. She said that it felt like her ankle had been twisted backwards 5 times. She said, I don't know what happened. It hurts. It burns. She's holding her ankle. She can't bear weight. She's on her knees trying to hobble out past the stairs. And she's saying to me, I just got to the bottom of the stair and just something like hit me, and that it was hot. And so I had to help her get into the car. And I locked all the peripheral doors from the outside. I left everything. I did not go in there either. And we left. As we're getting off the street, everybody's kind of starting to feel better. But I called back up the priest and I said, look, those things are attacking my kids. I said, I can't do this. I cannot do this anymore. I'm going to sell this house. I can't do this to my kids. What kind of a mother would I be if my child comes to me and says, there's a ghost in my closet or under my bed or in my bed for that matter? I mean, and there really is, you know, and this particular house could have very well have really been that, you know, and then there's no way for me to protect them because, you know, we're all huddled in a room or a bed and it could be pulling the sheets off of us. So I told him, I said, no, I'm done. I'm gonna sell the house. I'm gonna finish the renovations and we are moving. And he said, no, you have to, that is your house. You need to command them to leave. You need to take charge and stay there in the house. Don't let that. And I told him, I said, look, you know, what am I going to do if I'm having like an extended family over for Thanksgiving dinner and I see a ghost walk through the room? Because now I had seen them so much, I got used to what they looked like. And I stand up at the dining room table and start pointing and screaming, in the name of Jesus Christ, get out. How many guests do you think are going to stay? And how many of them do you think are going to invite me ever to their house because I might be bringing more than dessert with me? So I told him, I said, no. Yeah, I said, you know, there's no way. I'm not doing it. I can't. Your house is supposed to be your sanctuary. I said, I would be on edge constantly in that house. If a window was open and blew off a piece of paper, that would be enough to put me into, you know, into an anxious state. So I need to be able to relax in my house. So I ended up putting the house, well, I did have a Catholic priest come after that. He said, well, at least try the Catholic priest. So I had a Catholic priest come. That poor man made it worse. He was he was so scared. He was in and out of that house. I kid you not, in 10 minutes. When we went, I took him to the downstairs part first, which is where the demons and the young man tend to linger down there because it was kind of a dark room. And he is just shaking, and that Bible is in his hand, and he's got his bottle of holy water in the other hand. And and he's just shaking. So when we went upstairs, he wouldn't even go in the rooms. He went down the hallway, and from the doorway, he's squirting the holy water into the room, violent, coming down the hallway with his Bible and out the front door. And he was in the car. I drove him back. That man almost fell getting out of my car. He couldn't get out of my car fast enough. So, and it wasn't, you know, he had one of those dress things on too, like some of the Catholic priests wear. So, yeah, poor guy.
Sounds like he just read how to do an exorcism and he never actually done one before. And so he just like showed up just like, well, I think I'm supposed to bring this and this.
Yes. Yeah.
And walk around.
You know, there are a lot of priests out there that, you know, they've heard about it. They know what they do. You know, they know that it happens, but they may not believe. And if one thing you got to understand, if you don't believe, you're in a lot of trouble.
That's for sure.
I
know that's right.
After that,
I know that's right. That is for sure.
Yep.
So he ended up coming, and then, like I said, he practically fell out of the car. You know, getting out of the car. And then I had an Indian woman come that actually saw the demons at the same time that I did. And during that point, the young man was released from the house. She had me open the back sliding glass door, and she held back the one demon that was at the top of the stairs, literally standing there. And the guy just ran for the light right past me. And he was then, like I said, he was released. But the thing is that I went ahead and I put the house up for sale in the paper as a for sale by owner kind of thing. And I was even going to do a rent to own option. And I got a call from a couple who had 3 children who had lived in the area. They really wanted to move back to the neighborhood. It was the one that the mother had grown up in. They liked the style of the house. They had driven past it. So I went ahead while I was in the house and I made arrangements with them to come the next day. And I should not have done that because they can hear, you know, the spirits that are there can hear you, you know, talking. So I did make that appointment. So the next day, my mother and I arrived about an hour early. That place was spotless. There were no cleaners left. There was nothing in that house left. So we brought like some plants and a couple of towels to kind of stage play so that it wouldn't look so empty. And as we're walking up to the front double entry doors, my mom says to me, she said, Lynn, you know, did you tint the windows? And I'm like, no. And of course there were vertical blinds. And when I looked up to the upper part, you couldn't see the divisions of the vertical blinds or them pushed aside because you could still see them a little bit. And I couldn't see that. But when I looked to the lower level windows, there were flies speckled all over those lower windows. And then when I looked back upstairs, I realized that it was like moving like 3D. Those windows were covered in flies, just covered in flies. Okay, I kid
Yeah,
you.
that's where you need the power of Christ compels you.
Yes, exactly. So my mother and I, here these people are going to be coming in on top of us in an hour. We were debating even like, what are we going to do? We thought that when we entered the house that the flies would start swarming us, but they didn't. They were plastered all over the windows trying to get out. They had been there so long that they had left excrement all around. I didn't know that fly poop is brown. I mean, they had left excrement all over the molding around the windows where they had speckled it with, going to the bathroom on it. And so my mom and I, we had to go in. We literally had to pull the screens off of the windows to usher them out. And the thing is there was a set of windows, of 3 windows in the breakfast nook area, that the cranks were broken so they wouldn't open, and they had been painted shut from outside. But the glass was in good condition. They were sealed correctly. There were no holes in the screen. There were flies between the panes and the screens. So I had to take those screens off since I couldn't open the windows, usher the flies into the house and out the front window of the kitchen, and had to go from room to room to room doing this. And of course, these people are supposed to be coming. We're racing frantically to clean the brown speckles off of the molding, and time had passed. We were actually 15 minutes past the time that they were supposed to show up when I finally picked up my phone to see how much more time we had, and noticed that they had called and left a message that they needed to reschedule. And I was thankful, because I thought, what would, people walking up and there are these flies speckled all over the place, and we're running around doing the helicopter thing with the towel trying to get the things out, But anyway, so I was in my car when I called them back, not in the house. We rescheduled for the next day. And my mom and I this time went 2 hours in advance over to the house to make sure that everything was okay. And this time everything was okay. There was
waiting for frogs.
What's that?
I was waiting for frogs. It's like the next. It's like the next play.
Yeah. Yes.
Pestilence.
At some point, Lynn's got to be out there with a staff.
Yeah. That's right. Oh my gosh. So we got there, and of course there were no problems. So the people ended up coming. They got there on time, and they had 3 kids, but they only brought 2, the 2 younger ones. The older one wasn't with them. And of course, like with my kids, they were running through the house, picking out their bedrooms, and nobody wanted the small bedroom. So they came up, and it was like deja vu. They come up and they ask if they can go downstairs and look at the lower level, because there was this large bonus room in addition to this family room down there. So parents said yes. I said fine. Those kids, when they came back up, that one little girl, her eyes looked like a deer in headlights. and I overhear her saying to her brother that the kid that was not with Tommy, or whatever his name was, that wasn't with them, can have the creepy room downstairs. So they had seen
Tommy have it.
Yeah, the issues in the house. And right then and there, as a mother, I could not bring myself to sell it to anybody with children. So I managed to also get a call that afternoon of a retired couple from Florida who ended up buying the house. It was a cash buy. I was able to tell the other people no, that I couldn't sell it. But the thing is when we were signing papers in the house and it was time to kind of head out, I was going down in front of the wife. The husband was following behind her, and I leave the door, the double entry doors, and I'm standing out front, and I overhear the wife saying to the husband, "Why did you push me?" And I overhear him saying, "I didn't push you." She says, "Yes, you did." And he says, "No, I'm 3 steps back from you. I can't even reach you." And she said, "Well, I don't know what happened then," but she had stumbled on the stairs because she felt something push her. Of course, I knew what that was. I knew what had pushed her. And of course, tons of stuff happened in the book. I'm just kind of hitting some highlights here.
Mm-hmm.
So my conscience got the best of me, and I couldn't not say something about the ghosts. I didn't want to have happen to them that happened to me, even though I understood why the young couple with the kids had to, kind of dump it on me. So I said to them, they come out, they're standing there, and I said to them, I said, do you believe in ghosts? And they said, no. They said, we're Baptist. We don't believe in that sort of thing. We don't discuss that sort of thing. We are protected. We do not. So I respected that. I would have told them the truth if they had been open to it and if they had asked me, but they didn't want to know. So the closing came. They ended up moving in. 6 months later, I'm stuck in a built up traffic on the interstate. And this part's not in the book, so this starts the second book. So I have to take I get off the exit to avoid the accident, to try to get around it and get back on the interstate. And it just so happened that it took me into the neighborhood of the haunted mansion. And as I'm driving down the street, I notice that there's a sign in the front yard of the house, but it's so close to the other people's yard. I wasn't sure if it was in the neighbor's yard or if it was actually in the yard of the house that I had sold them. So curiosity got me. I went to the next street. I pull in. I'm like, I've got to see if that's a for sale sign. I just, my heart's sinking. I hoped all good things for them, that they really were protected. Maybe that there was a delayed reaction to all of the people that I had, and they're blessing the house. So anyway, I say a little prayer, and I'm like, dear Lord, please don't let them come out of their house. Protect me. I don't want them to come out and see me and invite me in, because I'm not interested in going in. And it was a dead street, so I had to pass it twice. Oh. So I turn off and I pull into the street, and sure enough, it's a for sale by owner sign in the front yard. This is 6 months later. The house is for sale. So and my heart just sunk in my chest, because I really, really had hoped that it would be a great retirement house for them, as they wanted. My intention, for them was all good things, but then I had to go down to the end of the street. Oh, and the neighbors across the street had bought this gigantic Archangel Michael statue.
I'm sorry, but me, I would have rolled down the window and honked the horn and just yelled out, "Do you believe me now?"
Oh, well, it's not done yet here. Yeah. Anyway, they had originally, because I told them about the house being haunted, they had originally had that statue before I had moved out completely, but it was in front of their one of their bedroom windows off to the side. Now that thing was dead center in their front yard facing the house. So anyway, I go down the street, I pull into these people's driveway because it's a dead end, and I have to come back around and pass the house again. So I've got my radio off. I'm trying to be real quiet, coming onto the house. And lo and behold, I get in front of that house. My car radio turns itself on almost full blast. I couldn't get it to change the channel. I couldn't get it to shut off. I sped off that street so fast, I left skid marks getting around that stop sign and off of that street.
They know who you are.
Yeah, they knew
who you are.
And they knew that I was there. And that was like a calling card. And that was it for me. I didn't go back since. But with the second book of the Omnipresent, what happened next, I did get a hold of the family that sold me the house. I did find out about how their children were being attacked in the house. She even told me one story where her kids, the one was in K4, the other one was like in first grade. And the teachers had asked the children, to draw a picture of their house and their family like they do in that grade. You get your little stick people. And lo and behold, next to the house, they had their family with their mom and dad and sister and brother kind of thing. But then off to the side, they had these 3 black things. And when the teacher and the parents asked what they were, those are the monsters that live downstairs in our house. So, they were also being attacked and being left with weird bruise marks, bite marks, claw marks. I mean, the whole shebang. And it turned out that they only lived there for 6 months and let it sit for a year. So yeah, I got to find out, what was happening with that also. I can tell you more, but I'm sure you probably have some questions.
Did you ever have a real discussion with your neighbors and get their opinion of what the heck is going on? Because they, it wasn't happening to them, but there's no way that you could sit there and not know what's going on.
Yeah, they're getting a Michael,
Neighbors are nosy, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
And when they start seeing things, they may have known the entire history there and just kept very quiet about the whole thing because they feared whatever it was coming to their home.
That Archangel statue alone shows that somebody saw something. I mean,
Yes,
as I was
exactly.
on there, I would have Gabriel. I would have had everybody.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Just blowing trumpets at 12 noon.
I know.
In the
right?
book, the neighbor already told you she was nosy, right? She was like, I was washing my dishes and you didn't even lock the door. You just ran out the house. She already told you she was nosy, didn't she?
Well, she had noticed me leave, but she noticed me doubling back from my car to come back and double check the lock to make sure that the door was in the door frame because I couldn't get the key to turn the deadbolt. So when I came back the next day and I put the key in, the door just pushed itself open. I didn't even finish unlocking, the door. So I thought that maybe I hadn't had it pulled into the door jamb correctly, but she clarified that when I went over to see her, that I actually went halfway to my car and doubled back and even grabbed that knob and shook it and jiggled it to make sure that it was in the doorway. So yeah, and the thing is I did have an Indian woman come. She actually spoke so bizarrely that it made sense. And in that way, when you have to step outside of the box of the traditional ways that you believe things, and she actually, was the most knowledgeable. She and I saw, with the man that she was also with, saw the hell dog present at the top of the stairs. We were all seeing the same things at the same time. But it just, there was a thought that I was going with that, and I just kind of lost my thought. Trying to think. But what she did mention is when she pulled into the driveway before she did the clearing, she pointed at the house catty corner across the street and she said, I bet that house is haunted and the one behind it is haunted too. And the thing that was ironic about her saying that was because the house had 3 different sets of tenants in it. In the 8 months that I owned the house, they kept moving in and moving out of the house that was catty corner. And I thought that was odd. And it came to mind, that it probably was haunted. And the house that was behind it was sitting empty and bank owned. So the whole time nobody was even living in it. But what she explained is that if my house had been built 3 feet over from where it would not have been haunted. She said something about ley lines or that they're tunneling, ley lines, I think is what she mentioned. And that when they built the house, that it kind of broke into one of those. And that when she was in there and we were doing the actual clearing and the hell dog was at the top of the stairs, she would speak to it and you would hear that gurgling didgeridoo sound as a response. And then she would speak to it and it was basically blocked from continuing on its path because of where the house was built. So they would come up through the fireplace and into the house instead. And that's why they were there. So she was trying to reopen that tunneling for them to get out and then block them out of the house. But, and that's a whole nother story too. But anyway, and that's why she knew when she looked at the house catty corner, because whatever it was that was angling through where my house had clipped into it was also direct in line with that house and the house that was behind it. Something else I want to say too, a lot of times these attachments can create pain. So a lot of times people that wouldn't normally have an addiction end up getting an addiction because they're seeking relief for their pain. My daughter, at one point, she was complaining about shoulder and back pain. And I mean, she's 14, she's not drug seeking at that point. I mean, the only thing she had was ibuprofen or Tylenol. So, but she was complaining about this pain to the point that I actually went and got her a rolling book bag, thinking that maybe, because their backpacks get heavy. But even with that, she was still complaining so much about the pain that I stayed home from work one day thinking I was going to have to take her to the emergency room because I thought it was some kind of pinched nerve or something serious, maybe a tumor or something, So I had stayed home with her that weekend. During that week, in the beginning of the week, I had the Indian lady coming, and my daughter was feeling a little bit better, so I took her with me there, and she was sitting in front of the house on this planter thing that we had. And when the Indian lady got out of the car, she pointed at my daughter and she said, is she having pain in her shoulder and back? And she even specified the correct shoulder. And I'm like, yeah. How'd you know? And she says, because she's got an attachment and it's a big one too. So she immediately, whatever she did energetically, she removed the attachment, stomped it into the ground. The guy next to her that came with her also was stomping it into the ground. And then she said to me, ask your daughter how her pain is. So I asked her, I said, hey, Brittany, I said, how's your shoulder feeling? And she started doing this helicopter motion with her arm and moving. And she says, I feel, I don't have any pain anymore. She was starting to move. As soon as that attachment was removed from her, she was not suffering from that pain anymore. So they can do that also.
Wow.
Yep.
No, that's great. That's perfect. It's like they said, reading Rainbow. If you want to know the rest of the story, buy the book.
That's right. So much more happened. And like I said, it's going to be a sequel with 5 books complete. The third one will be out with, we saw naked weenie man there, covering himself. That was from the third
I know.
one.
I was going to bring that up too. It's like, when you were talking about this part of something, yeah, can you imagine a Christmas story? And then there's the naked ghost thing just standing out there. You're like,
hey, guy, give me another cold one from the fridge.
That's right.
I hear you. I also have the book, The Colors of Heaven, which is out, which is a story about with my ability to have second sight, and being in end of life care. I've been a nurse for 38 years now. Don't tell anybody. 17 years of which has been in end of life care. I've seen a lot of people cross over. I am a death doula. I do help people cross over, but I saw my mother come out of her body. And that's what the story is about. It's to bring a lot of comfort and hopefully to take away some of the stigma of death and dying. We don't die. We just shed our skin and we go on vacation. And you will see us again. You will see your pets again. You will see your loved ones again. They're not gone forever. This is not the last stop. This book kind of helps to relay that. There are some books that I'm selling through my website only, and some of them that are on Amazon. These 3 are now on Amazon. The Gap is a book that two therapists asked me to write when I was looking for a book for my daughter to kind of take up where the birds and the bees leave off and where human trafficking starts. And there was a gap there where there wasn't, we've got this new gender movement. We've got all of this stuff going on. So they asked me to write the book, and they were shoulder to shoulder with me through the writing of the whole thing. And it talks about everything from going on your first date without stinky sneakers, because no matter how pretty or handsome you are, if you're stuck in a car with somebody with smelly shoes, it's not attractive, to what to do if a condom breaks. So, and it also gives them boundaries, healthy boundaries, and, how to, respect their body and not just give it away. Type thing. And it's not religiously based. It's based on common sense type thing. Nice. So I put that out there too. And it's a great tool. I recommend parents read it first because it's not candy coated. It is very straightforward.
Question for you, Lynn.
Yes. Yes.
First of all, I think it's a fantastic book, and I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she's gotten the talk, and you get the eye roll, which is their cardio, basically. Yeah. But it's a good book, actually. It's a great way of putting it and giving kids an opportunity to kind of read for themselves in this day and age. Kind of like what Judy Blume, I think it was Forever, was for people growing up that are a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
I think they still read it. But if somebody wanted to buy a book through your website, which is probably more profitable for you as well, is there a way they can, pay to get it autographed or...
yes.
Copy?
I send out the books myself. I'm actually going to be loading The Gap on there tonight. I do have it in book form. I need to put it in there in ebook as well. Yes, I send them from me. If you get them from Amazon, you're not going to get them autographed. If you do get them from me, and again, it's not about the money. I really want this information to get out there because people need to be aware of this paralleling spirituality. But yes, I will sign it when I receive the order. It can go through PayPal. There's also GoDaddy. If you have issues with either of those, you can contact me. I've got Cash App, Venmo type thing. You can contact me through my website, www.lynnmonet.com. I still am answering my own emails. So please reach out to me. And when I do receive the order, I do come back to you and say, okay, I've received your order. who would you like me to make the book out to? Because sometimes people purchase them as gifts. So, and I want to make sure that I'm addressing it to the right person, and then I mail it out myself. Once I mail it out, I send you the tracking number so that you can track it and make sure, and I also confirm the address before I ship it, because sometimes they have an address in their Amazon account and they've moved, so they have a different address. So I always confirm that as well.
Do you get to do any conferences, Lynn, where you're going to be present there to present your book or your?
I was just at the Hagwood Paracon this weekend, and I was a speaker there.
Yep.
And I'm getting ready to go to the Moon Fest and the Pagan Fest, and so I any fests that please let me know, because if it's within a 5 to 6 hour drive, I'll be happy to come and show up.
Well, depending where you are, but I'm in
South Carolina.
You're in South Carolina. I know it very well. And up in the Gettysburg area, Pennsylvania, coming July 13th, 14th, 15th, they have the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, and they raise money for Gold Star families and other wounded warriors. It's a whole paranormal festival there, and I think you'd be fantastic. So afterwards, I'll connect you to the persons that run it.
Okay.
Because you would fit in swimmingly over there.
Thank you. And also Cisco Murdoch, who has Journey Through the Gate, who I co-host with on Sundays, has insisted that she's going to drag me there. So I am her co-host on the last Sunday of every month, sometimes the middle of the week. I also have my own podcast, Synchronicity, Adding Pieces to the Puzzle. It is not just regular paranormal. It is next level paranormal. It is advanced paranormal. We're talking to people that already believe. So we kind of take it from that level and move forward. And we're not trying to convince anybody that something exists with Blinky. I don't mean to have that sound insulting to anybody that has that wants to show the presence, but we're past that.
Then that was perfectly stated, actually.
Pardon me?
You stated that perfectly, because it's not really an insult. It's the way you were saying it was perfect.
Okay, I appreciate that. But yes, I would love to be a speaker if they would like to have me. Like I said, I just did the Hagwood Mill. Here's my little thing. I'm so proud of. See, there I am, right there. There's one of the speakers.
So, it'd be a great panel to go listen to, because like I said, this has been an incredible talk. Like I said, I love the ones where I can just sit back and I can just take notes. Because I'm over here the whole time.
I researched the property, like not the property, but I researched where the area you said the house was in. By chance, did they turn it into a haunted house? Because there's a haunted house in that area, but I'm not sure if that's, one of the houses.
That whole area is haunted. The playhouse is haunted. You can see ghosts walking through there. They have that whole place is haunted. In my second book, I write about several places, people living there that had issues with their houses, that I found out after the fact when I started saying, oh yeah, East Flat Rock, they're like, oh, you couldn't get me to move there plus $1 million. There's no way. And then they were starting to tell me their stories. So I had permission to put their stories in the second book that talk about, and there's actually books out that talk about that area being haunted. And I came up from Florida, so I didn't know, I didn't know the area was haunted. I went into it totally blind. The local people knew, though.
What part of Florida did you move from?
I was born in Sarasota, and I grew up in all over Palm Beach County, Boynton Beach, Lake Worth, Delray, all of that area. So Boca Raton. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a true Floridian. Craig is from Oregon. He's from New York. So.
But I live in Florida now, Lake Worth.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm going to be there actually in July, just down the street from Donald Trump's house in Ocean Ridge. I stay in a little place called the Sun Deck. I would love to meet you in person.
I will probably meet you in July in Gettysburg, because I'm going to make sure Cisco.
Oh, that's right.
So Cisco's like a sister to me. I helped her out with her.
I love her.
Ex. Yeah, she's great. I'll help her drag you back up to Gettysburg.
Okay, what is the date on that? I hope it's not the same date that I'm going to be in Florida.
I think it's the 13th, 14th, 15th. There's a ton of different conferences. There's one this April 1st over in North Carolina called Encounter Quest, which I think is more cryptid based, but you would be fantastic on that.
I've seen cryptids too. I've seen aliens. I've seen it all.
There's one in Sarasota that's in coming June, and I will send you the information.
Thank
So
you. And what is the one that you mentioned about the cryptids in April?
It's called Encounter Quest. It's like a 1-day thing, and it's before Palm Sunday. Is Palm Sunday April 2nd?
Something like that.
Forgive me.
I'll have to look.
Yeah.
Gosh, I thought that Gettysburg was going to be later.
It usually is, but they moved it. A lot of people are changing their dates from the summers because I guess they wanted to have more people there, better rate, whatever it is. It's also hotter than the sun.
Yes.
So, but there's some interesting things there, and that could be a good spot for you just to come up, see Gettysburg, which is haunted. But I think you would have a blast there, and I'm almost positive you may be invited back for other things. So, it could be.
I would love that. And again, it depends on, because I am going to be, you know what? Hang on. Let me grab my are we still on camera?
Yes. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I was going to get up and get my.
You can do whatever you want.
Okay. I'm going to just get up and get my calendar real quick.
You do cartwheels now.
Bear with me 1 second.
Yeah.
I apologize to you, Craig, but
no, you're good. You're good.
I mean, this is just, the chat was blowing up. And it's a mind-blowing, this whole event is mind-blowing. I don't want to go anywhere near this location where the house is.
You know what?
I don't even know where the house is located. I don't even want to stop there to go to the bathroom.
Can't agree enough, Justin. Yeah, we had to finally bring some class into this joint, so
that's actually the weekend. The 16th is when I'm leaving for the Sun Deck. So
that's fine. I mean, if you came up, whatever. I don't want to drive
Friday
all the way up to drive down.
It's a
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just so you know. But I'll let you know. I'll contact you either through Cisco, or she knows who I mean, I've been on her show, and I'm sure we've chatted many times in chat rooms, Lynn. But I will get you the information, because there's another one that's taking place in Sarasota, like a horror movie thing. They're gonna love this, and they're looking for presenters. They can't offer you money, I can tell you that straight up, but they'll give you a table in a hotel room, and you can't beat that.
Yeah, you can't beat that. I'll take the hotel room and
I think your books would just give a half an hour of your story, and people would be buying that and the holy water cans next to it.
Yeah.
If you buy two, you get a can of holy water.
Yes, that's right. Well, actually, I do have and I've also got a bath thing, with the salt and some other things in it to clear people after they do that. Yeah.
Bring a couple editions that aren't edited. They're edited out for the protection, and they're in that sealed lead type container. It's like, for the special money here, you can have this one as I open it.
I would have Victorian chant at the table. Oh.
The haunted boxes.
Yeah, it's just a couple of haunted boxes. Yeah.
Just sprinkle salt all over the table and just rest the book on top of the salt.
Oh wow! Well, if I can get there for the Friday and Saturday, but I'll be there for the whole week. So when you come back from doing that, I'm going to be at the Sun Deck until the 22nd. We'll try to
figure something out. I definitely like to meet you.
Yeah, I mean,
want to come over to your house for coffee at all? Got to be on. No. I hope the new place is a lot better and it hasn't transferred with you.
No, it has not. And since then, I have found out how to get them out. But of course, and I know I'm actually clearing people's houses. I remove attachments from people and all that kind of stuff. So, my second book goes into schizophrenia and attachments on people, and the girl that I pulled some attachments off of that then turned out to be okay. So,
it's weird, like that too. You're right about it's not necessarily the house; it's the property. And when we bought this place, it's a brand new build on a former polo field in Florida, where they had tons of indigenous people here who may have been killed on this property.
Yes.
My daughters actually have heard things. I've cleared the house. I've salted and I saged, and there's nothing here. I said, but they're hearing certain sounds, and they feel like somebody's walking or whatever. And the only thing I can tell you is I know that they have a tremendous presence with old relatives that have passed on. But, it's still kids see things that we don't.
And that's very true. And older people do too. When those filters effaces, they get closer to their time to cross back over. So, and that's a whole nother show. That's actually in the Colors of Heaven talking about that.
Bring her back.
Yeah. Please do.
I know we had a few people. I said you need to have her back on. I'm like, yep.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. And really, please let me know all of these. I'm new to this, going to the Paracon things. So yes, definitely, I would like to know where all to go with that. And definitely hotel room does it for me. I'll find a way to get there.
I'll get you connected to the person that you need to get connected to.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll send over. I'll send over an email for you too.
Yeah, I wanted to go, but I have to be. I won't be up. I'll be up in New York, helping family go up there for a bit. So, but I'll try to be back for the July thing.
So we'll shoot for somewhere here about maybe midsummer, something like that, for an encore presentation of Lynn Monet on the Three Beers podcast. We'll shoot from there. So
that sounds good.
Lynn, thank you so much for coming on. I said Omnipresent. Buy it. Go buy that book.
Can we give her applause?
Oh, thank you. Give me about 20. Give me about, if you want the gap, give me about 24 hours to get that on there, or just directly contact me through email, because I'm looking at them. They're sitting right here on my table. So I have those. I just haven't gotten everything. I've been so busy with the Paracon this past week, and I'm just still getting unwound from that. So yeah.
That's understandable. So it's definitely that was great. Like I said, really appreciate that. So everybody go support her. Like I said, follow. I clicked on there. I followed you on Amazon too. So then I said, there we go. Just follow her there. Buy the book. Leave the reviews.
Yes,
I will eventually get to that. I'm very slow. I will get to it.
That's okay.
And eventually I'll have the review on there. So I tell everybody.
And I'm gonna secretly admit, I don't read many books, but I got into your book and I'm like, Craig, that book is amazing. So I'm gonna reach out and buy the hard copy so I can get a signature. But Craig will tell you, after the first couple of pages, if it's not interesting, I'm not even in it. I'm like, Craig, I read the first pages in the last 5. But your book, I got down to like I think page 82. And I'm
wow.
Like, okay, I can dig this one. This one's a real good book.
He's not lying. He does not read books.
I'm not.
Not even coloring books. He will not touch a coloring book either.
I like when I go out to dinner and they give me the little color paper. I take it to my son and I do the little crossword dot. But your book is amazing. I'm not
thank you so much.
So I'm gonna contact your website. I like an autographed copy.
Yes.
I may not want this one we talked about. Actually, when you're going through this whole thing, one of the things that I have the ability to do is I actually can see exactly what was taking place while you were talking about it. It's as if you're there. And like I said before, demons are way above my pay grade.
I get that.
So I may just get the Gap book.
Yeah. Well, and you know what?
And the Rainbow book, and move on from there.
Yes, that's fine. And right now, both of those are out in soft cover and ebook. So I'm just getting ready to put them into hardcover if you want that sort of thing too. But yeah, just reach out to me and let me know. I'll fix you up.
Hey, if there's anything that involves a priest and the thing yelling "Get out, priest," I'm all over that. That is my thing. Yeah. So, all right, everybody. Like I said, go support her. Thank you again. This show is brought to you by proud sponsor ERT Radio. Go to Mixler.com, set up your account there, follow, and then you can get amazing programs like this one as well. We're rebroadcast, I said, Wednesdays at 11 p.m. courtesy of Ron there. So we really appreciate him and his sponsorship. Thank you to everybody that's bought merchandise in the last few things. Got a few people that have actually sent us some pictures, and that's one of the things too. Is if people start sending pictures, I'm actually, I might just get like a little scroll thing at the end where we can kind of scroll like a thing and show people like the different stuff that they have. Like one guy said it was kind of like a steampunk thing wearing our t-shirt. It was pretty cool. So if anybody does that, I said appreciate. Anybody that subscribes, appreciate that too. It means quite a bit. Like, subscribe, share. That gets this word out to a lot of people. So that's the easy way. If you can't afford to throw stars our way or subscription things, at least least by clicking the subscribe on YouTube and just sharing the show and growing it, that's going to help us quite a bit. So I appreciate that.
Down here, Craig, I was wearing the Three Beards shirt, which is a quality shirt body, and I'm in the business, and I know it's very, very nicely done through the red bubble. And some guy goes, "Oh, Three Beards, I love that show."
Nice.
Like, oh, cool, thanks for listening. And had no clue. I'm like, okay, gotta go. But
that's awesome. I'm still waiting for the one. It's like, do I know you? You might have seen me around. I'm still waiting for one of those.
Barnes and Noble in Jersey once, where someone like, I know your voice, man. You do something like whatever, and he recognized me and like, oh my god.
So, but like our guest saying, yes. Synchronicity, adding pieces to the puzzle. You may see some three bearded guys hang out, show up one of these times on that show.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely. I definitely plan on having you on.
Yeah, so we will see about adding that in there. April's busy. I don't know when April's packed. I'm
too. I'm actually
speaking of demons in April, it's tax season.
That's
booking into the end of May into June.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No,
that's
but
good.
yeah, everybody, like I said, just once again, to really appreciate it. Please, everybody, go buy the book, support that, and we will see everybody on next week for another great show. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Generation Z is going to be coming on.
Is he actually coming on this time?
That's the rumor. That's a rumor. He's coming, that he's going to be able to make it this time. I know. Well, it's like, I guess maybe he got a threat about talking about anti-gravity. Maybe that was the thing. So we're going to try again.
Unless he had a widowmaker heart attack, there's no excuses.
That's right. Yeah. If you can show up after a heart event, it's like, come on, you can make the show here. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We will see you next week.
Thank you so much.